Picture this, you're on set, the cameras are rolling, the lights are bright, and everything is just about to get started. Then, the director walks up to Johnny Depp and says something that will make your jaw drop. He says, your co-star, Amber Heard, just arrived on set with her wife. And Johnny, in his typical bold way, turns to the director and says, no leading lady of mine stays gay for long. Now, hold up. Did he really just say that? Yes, he did. It's a comment that has had people talking for years, and today, we're diving into it. What does this shocking line really mean? And what does it say about Johnny Depp and Amber Heard's complicated relationship on and off the set? A new book shed some light on this behind-the-scenes moment, and we're here to break it all down for you. So, let's rewind and start at the beginning. Johnny Depp and Amber Heard met back in 2009 on the set of The Rum Diary. Johnny was already an established star, known for his quirky and deep roles in movies like Pirates of the Caribbean, while Amber was still building her career. They immediately had a spark, and not just on screen. Rumors of their off-screen chemistry quickly started to swirl. But what seemed like a fun and spontaneous connection quickly turned into something much more complicated. Fast forward to when they were filming The Rum Diary. Johnny and Amber spent a lot of time together, and what started as a professional relationship soon turned personal. That's when things got interesting. In 2011, after some time apart, they made their relationship public. And while it seemed like a Hollywood love story in the making, things behind the scenes were a bit more intense than anyone realized. Now, here comes the moment that would set the stage for everything that followed. It's on set, and according to reports, Johnny is told that Amber arrived with her wife. The next thing he says is unforgettable. No leading lady of mine stays gay for long. It's one of those moments that you can't help but replay in your mind. What did Johnny really mean by that? Was he joking, or was there something more to this statement? When you first hear it, you might think, oh, it's just a joke. Johnny being Johnny, right? But looking back at the bigger picture, it feels like it's a lot more telling. You've got to remember that by this point, Johnny and Amber's relationship had already started to be complicated. Johnny's words seemed to reflect something deeper, maybe even a subtle hint of control or ownership. And in the years that followed, things would definitely take some unexpected turns. Amber, who was open about her bisexuality, had just shown up with another woman, and Johnny's remark felt like more than just a comment about her love life. It almost feels like he's stating that he didn't want her to be with someone else. Was it a moment of jealousy or just a reflection of the type of man he was at the time? Whatever the case, it was a comment that would haunt both of them for years to come. Now, let's fast forward a few years. Johnny and Amber's relationship escalated quickly, moving from a whirlwind romance to a high-profile marriage. But with the love came the drama, the accusations, and the public fallout. Johnny's statement back on the Rum Diary set seemed to foreshadow the toxicity that would later play out publicly. And this is where things get even more intense. The book we're talking about today lifts the curtain on their tumultuous relationship and reveals some shocking behind-the-scenes moments. In one section, it talks about how Johnny's comment on set wasn't just a joke, it was a peek into the complicated dynamics of their marriage. Johnny's possessiveness, Amber's need for independence, and their conflicting personalities created a storm that would only get worse. Amber, who had always been outspoken about her sexuality, seemed to be constantly fighting for her identity, especially in her relationship with Johnny. His comment about her not staying gay for long wasn't just a remark on her sexuality, it was a reflection of the control he seemed to want over every part of her life, even her love life. It's no surprise that the marriage ended up being filled with dramatic moments and public conflict. But let's not just look at Johnny here. Amber, too, had her own struggles. There were reports of her being deeply affected by Johnny's behavior, feeling trapped in a marriage that seemed more about control than love. Their relationship, from the outside, looked perfect, but it was far from it. And this is the tricky part about Hollywood relationships, we see the glamour, the red carpets, and the press, but behind closed doors, things can be a lot darker. This brings us to the bigger picture. Hollywood loves to put stars on pedestals, but what we don't always see is the pressure they face. The paparazzi, the public scrutiny, and the constant spotlight can affect even the strongest of people. Johnny and Amber were no exception. Both were thrown into this media circus that not only ruined their personal lives but also put their careers in jeopardy. Johnny Depp's comment, whether it was meant as a joke or not, becomes a significant part of a much larger narrative that speaks to the complexities of both public and private identities. Hollywood is a place where the line between personal and professional often blurs, and the way celebrities are perceived can become an overwhelming weight. This weight can sometimes lead to distorted perceptions of who they are as people, which can, in turn, influence the way they relate to one another. Johnny's comment about Amber Heard staying gay for long wasn't just a passing remark. It was deeply reflective of the pressures they both faced, particularly in a high-profile relationship that seemed to be defined by layers of control, assumptions, and ever-present scrutiny. It's easy to look at their situation from the outside and say, well, that's their business. Let them sort it out. But it's hard to ignore that their story touched something deeper within many people who have found themselves in complex, misunderstood relationships. Relationships are often portrayed as simple, happy unions on the surface, but they can be riddled with complications, unspoken tensions, and struggles for identity. This dynamic isn't unique to Johnny and Amber, it's something that many people can relate to, especially when navigating personal identity and the expectations placed on them by society, family, and, in their case, the public eye. In a world where personal life is regularly laid bare for public consumption, it's a constant battle to maintain a sense of self. For Johnny, someone who had built a career around playing complex, often misunderstood characters, his own personal life was often under scrutiny. His persona, both on screen and off, was one of rebellion, independence, and defiance of Hollywood norms. But within the confines of his marriage to Amber, that same persona seemed to clash with the expectations that came with a high-profile relationship. Amber, too, was fighting her own battles. As a woman in Hollywood, Amber was constantly being examined and dissected, not only for her acting but for her sexuality. Being open about her bisexuality placed her in a position where she was frequently defined by her relationships, rather than her accomplishments or her own identity. Johnny's comment, though seemingly offhand, illustrates the undercurrent of power and control that played a role in their relationship. It wasn't just a joke about Amber's sexuality, it was a reflection of Johnny's beliefs about relationships, identity, and his perception of how things should be. At that time, he seemed to believe that he could change Amber, that her sexual identity, like everything else, was something he could influence. The fact that he made the statement so casually, in front of others, speaks volumes about the dynamic of their relationship. It reveals a subtle, but undeniable power imbalance, one that eventually began to unravel in their marriage. Looking back, it almost feels as though Johnny's comment was prophetic. It's easy to see it as just another passing moment, but when you consider the course their relationship took afterward, it seems to have foreshadowed the unraveling that was yet to come. Their relationship wasn't just about love, it was about control, perception, and who held the power to define their lives. For Johnny, his sense of identity was tied to being in control, and that control extended into his personal relationships. He wanted to be the one to call the shots, even when it came to Amber's sexual identity. Amber, on the other hand, found herself in a relationship where her own sense of self was constantly under attack, not only from Johnny's words but from the expectations placed upon her as a woman, as a bisexual woman, and as a Hollywood figure. As time went on, the cracks in their relationship began to show. The dynamic between them was often toxic, with allegations of abuse, manipulation, and control on both sides. It wasn't just a battle of egos or a clash of personalities, it was a battle for identity and for space. In their public life, they were constantly fighting to hold on to who they were, but in private, the situation was far more complex. As their relationship continued to deteriorate, the cracks turned into deep chasms, with both of them being dragged through the court of public opinion. Their marriage, which had once seemed so full of promise, was now seen as a tragic example of how two people, despite their chemistry, could lose themselves in a relationship that was, in many ways, doomed from the start. Looking at their story now, it becomes clear that the breakdown of their marriage was inevitable, given the power struggles at play. Johnny's initial comment about Amber's sexuality wasn't just an isolated moment of insensitivity, it was part of a larger pattern of behavior that suggested he saw her less as an equal partner and more as someone whose identity was malleable, someone he could mold to fit his own perception of what a relationship should be. Amber, on the other hand, fought for her own space and independence, but the pressure from Johnny, the media, and the public made it nearly impossible for her to remain grounded in her own identity. In the aftermath of their divorce, the fallout was nothing short of dramatic. The media circus surrounding their relationship took center stage, with every moment dissected and analyzed by the public. Both of them were forced to relive their worst moments in front of the world, from Amber's allegations of abuse to Johnny's legal battles and accusations of his own behavior. What started as a seemingly innocent comment on a movie set soon turned into a reflection of everything that was wrong with their relationship, and, in some ways, their entire marriage. It was about more than just love. It was about power, control, and the damage that can be done when two people, despite their connection, cannot find a way to meet each other halfway. Johnny's words may have been meant as a joke, but in hindsight, they seem to encapsulate the larger, more complex issues that ultimately tore them apart. Their story is a painful reminder of how personal struggles, when compounded by the weight of public expectation and media scrutiny, can lead to the unraveling of a relationship. It's easy to point fingers and say, they should have done this differently, but the reality is far more complicated. Sometimes, the pressure to conform to society's expectations of what a relationship should look like can be too much to bear, even for those who seem to have everything going for them. The story of Johnny and Amber is a reflection of how love, power, and identity collide in a world that is always watching. It's a cautionary tale for those who believe that love can conquer all, but who fail to understand that true love requires mutual respect, trust, and the freedom to be who you are, without fear of judgment or control. Johnny's comment, no matter how it was intended, serves as a painful reminder of the fragility of relationships, especially when power dynamics are at play. Amber's accusations of abuse, Johnny's legal battles, and the entire circus of media attention that followed showed us that their story was more complicated than anyone realized. The line that Johnny said on set now feels like a symbol of everything that would eventually come to light, the power struggles, the control, and the public humiliation that both would face in the years to come. Looking at it now, it's hard not to feel sympathy for both of them. They were two people who got caught up in something much bigger than they could handle. The pressure from Hollywood, the media, and even their own personal demons led to a marriage that was doomed from the start. But what's the takeaway from all this? Maybe it's a reminder that Hollywood relationships aren't always what they seem. What looks like a fairy tale on screen can be a nightmare behind the scenes. And it's important to remember that when you see these stars in the news or on social media, there's often a lot more going on than what meets the eye. Now, it's your turn to weigh in. What do you think about Johnny's comment? Was it just a joke, or did it reflect a deeper issue? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this shocking moment in Hollywood history. And if you enjoyed this dive into Johnny and Amber's controversial relationship, make sure to check out my other videos on celebrity scandals and Hollywood drama. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe if you want more in-depth stories like this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.